Good afternoon. I am Andrea Chisholm with the Midday News. Special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. A reminder as well that you can download our One Spot Media app in the Google Play Store or the App Store. That's the number 1, followed by the words Spot and Media. With 2 months remaining in 2017, crime statistics indicate that Jamaica has surpassed the murder toll for all of last year. 1,359 persons were killed between January 1 and November 4 this year, representing a 26% increase. As TVJ's Herman Green reports, business leaders in Montego Bay are still concerned about crime in the parish.
1,359 persons killed since the start of the year up to November 4. That's 280 more than the corresponding period last year. Illegal guns featured in 82% of the murders. A breakdown shows that 8 members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force and 48 children were murdered, 1,200 men and 103 women. For shootings, 1,225 were recorded compared to 979 during the same period last year. There is, however, a reduction in other crimes: rape, aggravated assault, robbery, break-ins and larceny. And the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce and Industry is again expressing concern about crime in St. James. National Security Minister Robert Montague and Police Commissioner George Coelho met with stakeholders on Saturday and were taken to task on several issues. Among them, an increase in murders and a shortage of police personnel in Montego Bay. The business leaders also believe that information about criminal activities is not being communicated by the police.
I can assure you, Mr. Smith, that we are not withholding any information. Just whilst we were here talking earlier on, I was even sharing with the President some of the information that are available to us. And that is why it is very important that we have build and sustain useful relationship with your divisional commander, your area commander, and certainly with High Command.
Mr. Montague reiterated that it will take time for the crime-fighting plan to reap results. He adds that plans are underway to fill vacancies for 40 officers in the parish.
I want my 40 officers, sir, and I understand I can't get them overnight, but I'm going to hold you accountable to ensuring that we have those. We understand that crime is everybody's business, and we also understand that it didn't happen overnight, so the solution will not be overnight. But I'm heartened to see that the plan has actually started to be implemented. And there are some milestones that we can hold you accountable to, sir.
Herman Green, TVJ News.
The Clarendon police are investigating the murder of Kevin Mitchell in New Bowens. TVJ News understands that shortly after 6 last night, gunmen went to the area and shot Mr. Mitchell, killing him on the spot. The gunmen later fled in a motor car, but the police were hot on their trail. Upon their arrival in Hayes, the police signaled the car to stop. However, the gunmen disobeyed the order from the police and opened fire. The police returned the fire and an unidentified man was found with gunshot wounds. He was later pronounced dead at hospital. A firearm and magazines with live rounds were found. The police are now searching for the other 3 men in connection with the incident, as well as the owner of the motor car. Changes have been made to the boundaries of the zone of special operations in Denhamtown, West Kingston. The revision, which was announced by the Jamaica Constabulary Force today, indicate that the new boundaries will now include an area commonly called Shooter's Hill. The new border has now pushed the boundary to Albert Street westward to include Water Lane. The new western boundary is now Little King Street. On the northern side, the boundary is pushed from Greenwich Street to Blunt Street. On October 17, Prime Minister Andrew Holness declared Denhamtown as the 2nd zone of special operations. Mount Salem St. James was the first. Residents in 3 communities in St. James took to the streets this morning to protest deplorable road conditions. They are calling on their elected representative to carry out much-needed work. Affected areas include Hampton Road, Johns Hall and Welcome Hall. Residents used old cars and stones to block the roadway. Despite reports that companies in the local business processing outsourcing sector have not been conforming to core labor standards, the Labor Ministry is reporting that it has not received any complaints from workers. Concerns have been raised about workers at call centers not being able to get unionized, as well as the high turnover rate and low wages. The issue was put to Labor Minister Shahini Robinson.
Formal complaints stating that that is so. If in the event that the ministry does receive a complaint, a written complaint, then we will investigate.
In the meantime, the government is being urged to resist doing business with companies that do not conform to core labor standards. The call comes from General Secretary of the Union of Technical, Administrative and Supervisory Personnel, St. Patrice.
It's never easy to represent workers when there is no security of tenure, because the most important thing to a worker is his job. So anything that would seem to threaten that would be something that he would stay away from. And that is what now confronts many of the workers in the BPOs. They are on 1 year, 2 year contract.
The Jamaica Teachers Association and the government will return to the negotiating table this week to continue wage talks. The association was last week informed of the date.
To the table on the 8th of November, at which time we will resume our wage talks. Our expectation is always to improve what was there before, because that's the purpose of negotiation.
The association last month urged the Ministry of Finance to indicate when it will resume salary negotiations for the 2017-2019 contract period. The JTS said teachers are restive. The government initially offered a 6% wage increase over the 2 years. Taxi and bus operators in St. Thomas withdrew their services, protesting poor road conditions Monday morning. The operators are calling for the Member of Parliament for the Eastern and Western St. Thomas to fix the roads, which they say have been in a deplorable state due to lack of maintenance. Motorists say they are frustrated at the unfulfilled promises to address the problem.
Road condition, we as busmen and transportation here, we are suffering of the road in St. Thomas. Every day we broke spring, broke up blade, all type of things. We don't make them money through the road condition.
We don't want the roads to be patched. We want some serious timelines, because we heard that there are plans to build a highway from Harborview up to Port Antonio, and they are going to have meetings down in this month as per the leg from Harborview to Yallas. But we are concerned about the entire road network in St. Thomas.
Amidst growing concerns about students who publicly display bad behavior, representatives of the Peace Management Initiative PMI are calling for a social worker to be assigned to every school to help guidance counselors address the issue. The matter was addressed on TVJ's Smile Jamaica this morning. More in this report.
It's the video that still has people talking a week after it surfaced on social media. Female students at the Anchovy High School in St. James attacking the Dean of Discipline. Classes were suspended on the day of the incident for students from grades 9 to 10. Speaking on TVJ's Smile Jamaica It's Morning Time on Monday, Clinical Intervention Specialist at the Peace Management Initiative, PMI, Erica Allen, said one way to address the issue of student behavior is to have a social worker in each school. She says guidance counselors are overwhelmed because of growing issues a large number of students face.
You need to have somebody who can do that follow through, which is absolutely necessary. Because while the children are in school, outside of the problems that they're having, they have to learn. And a lot of the guidance counselors do teach classes as well. Guidance counselors are kind of limited. The capacity in terms of the amount of students they have to deal with, it doesn't allow for them to leave the school and go in the home environment. So we have the opportunity to do that. So we tend to follow up with the child. If we see a child in school where the trauma level is extremely high based on our assessment, we can go to the home, talk to the parents, our parent, the family, whoever is there, and try to work with them from that angle.
Social worker at the PMI, Effie Nemard, notes the PMI currently does not have enough social workers for all schools, but she says there are many who are unemployed and others who are being trained. And noting that the parents of some behaviorally challenged students are overwhelmed, she said the PMI has partnered with other organizations to go into the communities to help.
We will go, we will identify the families that need assistance, and we will try to provide whatever it is they need, meet them at their point of need, because we recognize that sometimes parents are overwhelmed and they just need to get some parenting tips and to address the issues.
If you're living in a community where violence is high, safety is your number one priority. You might have suffered a loss, so you're dealing with that loss yourself, and your children are affected. Your job now is to try to keep them safe or try to find a way out of that situation. So psychological intervention is not necessarily the first thing that you think about. And that is one of the challenges, because the persons are so overwhelmed. They say parents are not doing their job, but sometimes the parents is doing that the best that they can.
Kalisha Williams, TVJ News.
There are renewed calls this afternoon for the government to halt plans to develop Monkey Island just off the coast of Port Antonio, Portland. Residents contend that enough information is not forthcoming from the developers. Details from TVJ's Ashane Masters.
The iconic Pelú or Monkey Island, which sits just off the coast of Port Antonio, Portland, have been in the news for quite some time. There have been a strong public outcry regarding its development ever since the government proposed development plans years ago. The proposal involved constructing villas on the small island. Fast forward to 2017 and there are even stronger criticisms. A meeting was held in Port Antonio on Friday to provide an update on restoration plans for the island. But the seemingly irate interest groups were still not convinced.
It is filled with lies. It is the worst possible thing. It would be an environmental disaster.
And the information that was provided to us was completely insufficient. It was far too vague. So the purpose of a meeting like this is to come and present to the people, what is planned exactly and how the damage that could happen will be avoided. And we really did not see that. We did not have enough detail to really question the people. And there was a lot of just a very unprofessional way of handling what is a very serious matter.
One marine biologist, Dane Boudou, is especially concerned about the impact the project will have on the fishing industry and the coral reefs.
We are now protecting fish stocks, we're protecting pirate fish, we're protecting fish that will put algae down. We are improving water quality. So this is where we're going in the right direction. I think this development will actually take us in the wrong direction.
They are now calling for the government to halt the proposed project.
I really cannot see how I can support any development of Pelú Island. From a scientific standpoint, from a management standpoint, the Alligator Foundation are the managers for the fish sanctuary. And if the managers who are designated as such by the government of Jamaica can support the development in the fish sanctuary, I think it has to come with some amount of weight.
And we are going to sit and discuss the matter, and then we can come to a conclusion. But presently, we cannot come to a conclusion because there are certain facts which we need, and we did not get that from the presenter.
Ashane Masters, TVJ News.
Already struggling with huge costs to fix damaged buses, the Jamaica Urban Transit Company has another expense on their hands after a bus transporting staff members crashed in Thomas Penn, St. Catherine about 3:15 Monday morning. TVJ News has not been able to reach anyone from the JUTC to give details about the crash, but residents say they rushed one of the injured staff members to hospital. A resident said the crash points to a greater issue concerning the state of the roads, noting that things could have been more serious if the crash had happened later in the morning when children were heading to school.
It's where we walk, where the children go to school. We need it to be fixed, but not because the accident do not cause any life, but we need it to be fixed. But right is here where we walk, and the tank there is our drinking water run through there. So yes, we walk as we walk. We have to jump off the road because the vehicle them are coming round. Lick we have if we don't know if we got a little track this, a little track we walk and we are the mash up. So we need it to fix back for the sake of the children them.
In news overseas, a day after a deadly attack in Texas, President Donald Trump says the church shooting was caused by a mental health problem and not an issue with gun laws in the United States. We go to the CNN for details.
Mental health problems in our country, as do other countries. But this isn't a guns situation. I mean, we could go into it, but it's a little bit soon to go into it. But fortunately, somebody else had a gun that was shooting in the opposite direction. Otherwise, it would have been as bad as it was. It would have been much worse. But this is a mental health problem at the highest level. It's a very, very sad event. These are great people and a very, very sad event, but that's the way I view it.
First of all, let's touch on that comment from Texas. We heard a very similar comment after the massacre in Las Vegas, where he said that the shooter had his wires crossed or something. He says in this Texas massacre, he said this isn't a guns situation. This is a deranged person, a mental health problem at the highest level. What do you make of that?
Well, Michael, this is the president really going back to his position. It always seems to be the position that he has after one of these mass shooting events, and that is that now is not the time to talk about gun control. He even made that comment when asked about this here at this news conference with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe.
And